It's time for 515 Fantasy Football.
I know football. Are you ready for some football?
Domination on Sundays begins with listening to these guys on Thursdays.
You ready for this?
Over 40 years of fantasy football experience between them.
Yeah!
One is a proud veteran of the United States Marine Corps, husband and father, entering his 18th year of fantasy competition. Brian Eikenberry. The other, also a proud husband and father, is one of the winningest fantasy minds in the state. Celebrating 24 years of excellence. Andy Hall.
Let's get the game on!
It's showtime. The 515 Fantasy Football Show with your hosts, Andy Hall and Brian Eikenberry.
Welcome back. A Week 8 edition of the 515 Fantasy Football Show is underway. Andy Hall and Brian Eikenberry, loaded with over 40 years of experience between us, guiding you to fantasy glory by breaking it all down like very few analysts and quote-unquote experts do, Brian.
I am absolutely loving life right now, sitting in some leagues at 5-2 atop of the throne, and life is good right now, my man.
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple leagues where I'm like in the 500 range, but then I have one league where I'm 7-0, and I have another league where I'm 6-1. So, you know, you take the good with the bad, and if bad is only 500, I'll certainly take that.
Take it.
We invite you to be a part of our online community on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football, on Twitter at 515 Fantasy, and online at espndesmoines.com, where throughout the course of a week leading up to the games, we offer plenty of insight and advice as you make adjustments to your roster. Allow me to remind you, our guarantee is this. Unlike so many so-called experts in the fantasy game, we will never, ever ignore you. You reach out with a question or a comment. You take the time to communicate with us and trust us with your decisions. We respond in kind 100% of the time.
Brian might be a little delayed as I forget to check Twitter sometimes, but I will get to you. Even if it's a day late, I will still get to you.
And inevitably, the disagreements begin.
Yes.
Then because, and we'll talk about that later in the show probably, but we've already had an early disagreement this week on what to do with somebody's lineup. But, that's bound to happen. Brian and I do agree from time to time.
One of us will be right.
That's true. It's a nice thing about having a two-man crew here. Over the next 2 hours, Brian and I will grade all the fantasy-relevant players, break down each of this week's matchups from a statistical angle with our data-driven delivery. For those of you that are in need of a dart throw, another round of bargain bin coming up later on in the show. One quarterback, one running back, and one pass catcher from each of us that chances are available now on your waiver wire. Throw them in and expect a decent amount of fantasy production from. Pop quiz answering 3 of fantasy's toughest questions, and, of course, the Flea Flicker will wrap things up. But we begin, as we always do, with some headlines of fantasy note. Dolphins running back Arian Foster announced his retirement on Monday, Brian.
That sucked. Whoops. I was counting on him. He was one of my little risky picks that I took mid-range, and I really needed him to pan out.
God, it's happened so many times in just the past few years where people think this is the year he'll stay healthy and he'll have that monster year again, and it just never happened. He always had those nagging injuries.
Yeah.
But, he was a hell of a fantasy performer for a long time, and nobody scored more touchdowns than he did from 2009 on when he came in as an undrafted free agent, except for Adrian Peterson, I think, is the only one that scored more touchdowns.
So I don't know if you remember this, but I think 4 years ago there was a stock market for professional athletes, and Arian Foster was the headliner, where you bought with real money shares of an NFL player. And what happened is they traded just like the stock market. As the individual did better, his stock rose, essentially, and he gained more value. Just like the stock market, it's all artificial values, so it went up and down. It was also the year he was injured, like week 1 or 2,
Oof.
I think it was.
Yikes.
And he literally was the beginning of the player stock market for real money and the end of it. It did not make it out of that season. Because I was super stoked. I was like, Mr. Investor, I'm like, this is going to be cool. I'm going to load so much money into this thing.
This is pre-DFS, right?
Yeah, this is
predates.
pre-DFS.
Yeah, so wow, that was the first DFS essentially.
Yeah,
then.
is you bought just stocks into a player and played it like the stock market.
Moving on, the Giants released kicker Josh Brown. Not sure we need to spend a whole lot of time on that piece of work. Broncos running back C.J. Anderson could miss several weeks with a knee bruise. Devontae Booker becomes one of the most important pickups / guys you've held on to / handcuffs of the entire season just that quickly, Brian.
Well, you called it about 2-3 weeks ago.
I did.
You said you need to stash him right now.
I did.
And it has just paid off because I didn't even take your advice and I missed out.
Something called Capri Bibbs is the third running back in Denver.
I thought that was a drink. Capri Suns?
Put a little umbrella on the top of his helmet. I don't think we'll see a whole lot of Mr. Bibbs.
No.
I could be mistaken. Falcons running back Tevin Coleman expected to miss extended time with his hamstring injury. Fire up Devontae Freeman.
Yeah, that was kind of a gift from the gods there. If you were a Freeman owner, and some of you might have traded him on the low or, made that mistake. And
I got rid of him because I was tired of the headache in general, because there were games where Coleman would have huge games and, Freeman would be just kind of like meh. Then they'd both have a great game, and I don't know. I didn't want to deal with it, so I got rid of him. Packers running back Don Jackson's left hand did not show a break. The swelling is down. If he can grip a ball, he'll play this Sunday, but I'm not sure he'll see a whole lot of playing time. Probably be a combination, some semblance of Ty Montgomery, Randall Cobb, and Niall Davis another week in that Packers offense too.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's Niall Davis's deal? I mean, you're a running back. It's week 2. You go left or right. That's it, or straight in the middle.
Yeah, if there is one position where it's relatively easy to pick up a new team's playbook, it's probably running back.
You would think so.
Yeah, he spent some extra time with the coaching staff there recently. I think he'll have it all straightened out. We'll see more of him this week, I'm sure. Patriots running back Deion Lewis will return to practice this week, which is good news for those of you that have held on to him way too long. Texans running back Lamar Miller considered day-to-day with a bruised shoulder. He had a nice 25-yard run down the left sideline last Monday night and took a hit right there on the sideline and was kind of in and out of the game for the rest of the game. Very frustrating for his owners watching Alfred Blue run the ball all night long.
When you're tied and Alfred Blue gets a 6-yard gain to screw you over.
Killed me. Bills running back LaShawn McCoy aggravated his hamstring in Week 7, just as we knew he would. When I heard he was active and going to start, I thought this is such a bad idea.
Stupid.
Don't you love when fantasy folks are smarter than NFL coaches? I'm way smarter than Rex Ryan, Brian.
Why are you risking it?
So stupid. So I don't know what they're going to do there. Mike Gillislee missing some time this week at practice as well. It could be Reggie Bush this weekend, of all people. Buccaneers running back Doug Martin remained on the sidelines for Wednesday's practice. They're certainly not going to rush him back. So fire up Jaquiz Rogers. Great matchup.
Thank you.
Ravens head coach John Harbaugh says he wants rookie Kenneth Dixon to have more involvement going forward, which is good news. Redskins head coach Jay Gruden admitted running back Matt Jones could see his carries reduced due to fumbling issues. That's already a mess there in that Redskins backfield. Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll expects running back Thomas Rawls back in 2 weeks' time. So if Thomas Rawls is sitting there on your waiver wire, do you grab him, Brian?
Coming out of these bye weeks, I think you're probably in a good situation where you can kind of cut bait with one of those receivers you've been holding on to for no reason. And once you clear the bye week, I think you're in a good spot to stash him.
I mean, I kind of like where Christine Michael's at, to be honest with you, and I don't think he takes a back seat once Thomas Rawls comes back.
You never know. Like I said, if you've got that roster spot, hey, it's worth the gamble.
Skins tight end Jordan Reed has resumed practicing. Remember, he suffered his 6th concussion just a couple short weeks ago, and looks like he's trying to rush back out there, and we'll see what happens. Jets quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick back under center after Geno Smith tore his ACL in Week 7. The bearded one is back.
Oh, geez.
Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson has a new injury to add to his collection. Pectoral muscle strain limited him in practice on Wednesday. He's already got an ankle and a knee problem. Now we're adding pectoral muscle as well. Rams quarterback Jared Goff seeing increased practice time with the first-team offense this bye week. Browns quarterback Kevin Hogan actually listed as the number 1 in the team's depth chart as of Tuesday, but Josh McCown may actually start this Sunday versus the Jets if he's ready to go, and it looks like he might be. Bears quarterback Jay Cutler cleared to return for Week 8. Surprise, surprise on this. The minute Brian Hoyer gets hurt and they need a quarterback, all of a sudden that thumb is magically healed.
Yeah, it was quite amazing. And then to come out and say what he did about John Fox, that he has no choice but to back me now. Good job.
Guess. Cowboys wide receiver Des Bryant on track to return to action this weekend. He's limited in practice, but they expect him to play. Colts wide receiver Dante Moncrief back at practice this week, questionable for this Sunday. The Niners are open to trading wide receiver Torrey Smith prior to the November 1st trade deadline. Not sure anybody's biting on that. Cardinals wide receiver John Brown should be back in the lineup this week. Tyler Eifert's role may be expanded, according to head coach Marvin Lewis there in Cincy. Chargers wide receivers Tyrell Williams and Travis Benjamin both sat out practice on Wednesday. Hunter Henry returned to practice, so he's maybe on track to play this weekend despite those concussion issues. And Delaney Walker, a bruised chest, but he's no longer listed on the injury report. Good news for him. We'll get right into the matchups next. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. Hey, real quick, want to let you guys know about an exclusive deal for our podcast listeners that are into DFS contests. How would you like the chance to win some pretty incredible prizes just for playing fantasy football? Talking everything from gift cards to Buffalo Wild Wings to even a PS4. Download the Fananas app now and start competing immediately. Set your lineup with no salary cap and win. Use the promo code 515 and your first game is free. Start by downloading the Fananas app, that's Fananas, like bananas with an F, and use the promo code 515. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard each and every Thursday from 11 to 1 on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines, Iowa. You also may be hearing us on iTunes, on Stitcher, or online at espndesmoines.com. No matter how you found us, Brian and I both appreciate it very, very much as we dive into the Week 8 matchups. Brian, you've got Thursday Night Football.
All right, Thursday Night Football, the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Tennessee Titans. Quarterback Blake Bortles getting a C- out of me this week. He's fallen completely off the ledge. I have lost all confidence, and if you are starting him, you are in a bad situation. He has 1,500 yards, 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. You know how many points that is in fantasy football?
Not many.
Not many. I didn't even waste my time counting. So there's so many other options out there. You need to listen to the bargain bin coming up for your replacements. Running back TJ Yeldon and Chris Ivory. I'm giving both C+ here. Ivory has fully recovered now from his sickness. He's back into it. It seems like they're at a 50-50 split again. TJ Yeldon is still technically the starter, but it seems they're going to be splitting the workload. Ivory had the most rushing yards last week, but they all came on a 42-yard scamper. So if you take that away, he was averaging less than 1 yard per carry. So don't let last week's box score get you excited about starting Ivory either. Wide receiver Allen Robinson, B-, and I'm just going to lump these guys together, even though it breaks my heart. Allen Hurns is getting a B- as well. It's the same story for these two. Allen Robinson gets the touchdowns, which he could hit this week with Julius Thomas being hobbled up. So that's why he isn't a C grade at this point. So Allen Robinson might get one of those touchdowns. Wide receiver Allen Hurns, B-. I was an Allen Hurns owner, and I say was because he is downright droppable at this point.
Oh, I agree. I think Marquise Lee's the guy to own.
Yeah, absolutely. He gets the B- just because he has more yards than Allen Robinson, but that's all he's getting. Collectively, you either have to bench or drop this guy. 2 of the top 15 wide receivers last year are just downright terrible. Marquise Lee, you did hear just Andy mention it. I'm giving him a C. As much as I wanted him to kind of vault up there this week, I don't think this is the week for him to do it. I like Tennessee's defense, but Marquise Lee is clearly the person to hold on your roster over Allen Hurns. And Julius Thomas, you did hear it, is not getting a start of confidence this week. He's kind of questionable, and he's definitely not a yardage play. You're counting on the touchdowns. On the Tennessee Titans side of the ball, quarterback Marcus Mariota, he's getting a B. Better quarterback out of the matchup here. It's not really saying much, though. The Titans have the 27th ranked passing offense against the 7th best passing defense. So there may be a challenge to scoring this week. Running back to Marco Murray, he gets the A. Murray cannot be contained, and the Jags are giving up 109 yards per game on the ground. Look for Murray to follow up and just blow it up as usual here. The wide receiver category, Rashard Matthews, I think, is the guy to own here. Wide receiver, based solely on yardage and potential ability to break that bigger touchdown. Tajay Sharp, C+. I wouldn't start him even if I had to. He hasn't shown much to warrant even a desperation start. There just isn't much consistency there at all. Over you got Andre Johnson, Kendall Wright on the other side. They're getting C pluses. These guys, it's not their fault. I think it's more Mariota and them relying on DeMarco Murray so much. If you are going to own a pass catcher in the Titans offense, it better be Delaney Walker. He's all the offense outside of DeMarco Murray. He has 25% of Mariota's touchdown passes. So if you have him, I'd start him over a desperation play of any of these wide receivers.
On to the Sunday games. Washington at Cincinnati. Start with the Redskins. Quarterback Kirk Cousins, a B grade. This may not be the week to expect a high yardage total from Cousins. The Bengals rank in the middle against opposing passers from a yards allowed standpoint, allowing 236 per game through the air. Where I see Cousins succeeding on Sunday is touchdown tosses, since he has given up the third most touchdown passes in the league with 14. Running backs, Chris Thompson, a B grade. Cincy is a bottom third run defense. They've given up the 9th most rushing yards and can be exposed by pass-catching backs with elusiveness, like Thompson, who led the team in touches in Week 7. More on him later in the show. Running back Rob Kelly, I'll give a C+ to. The majority of his production in terms of fantasy will be inside the 5-yard line. He doesn't score, you're probably disappointed in his output. Matt Jones, I'm leaving him on the bench. He's had fumbling issues. He's currently in head coach Jay Gruden's doghouse. Wide receivers, Deshaun Jackson, a B grade. The Bengals have allowed 14 touchdowns to opposing pass catchers through 7 weeks. I think Jackson has a good chance to grab at least one this week. Jamison Crowder, a C+. PPR flex play here. Crowder benefits from the slot, drawing coverage from a very mediocre Bengals secondary that won't be able to match his speed. Pierre Garçon, I'm going to leave on the bench. Vernon Davis, looking like the starting tight end here. I'm going to give Vernon Davis a B grade, with Jordan Reed expected to miss at least one more game. Although, the report I just read today, it makes it almost sound like he wants to come and try to play this week, but Davis gets another opportunity, I think. Should be considered a low-end tight end one against Cincy. Boy, if Jordan Reed plays, that's a really tough call. And if he wants to play and he's dressed, we're going to be getting a lot of questions about Jordan Reed. Do I start him?
No, as a Reed owner, I am not starting him just because 6 concussions, man. I mean, you might as well be running sideways at this point, right?
Right. Over to the Bengals side, quarterback Andy Dalton, a B grade. The Skins are a much better secondary with cornerback Josh Norman in the lineup. He's in the league's concussion protocol. We won't know until later today whether he has been cleared and is on his way to London. If Norman can't go, Dalton's B grade becomes a B+. Washington is very exploitable. Dalton is coming off a solid 300-plus yard passing day with 2 scores against the Browns in Week 7. The running backs, Jeremy Hill gets an A grade for me in this game. Washington is one of only 3 NFL teams to allow at least 5 yards per carry on the season thus far. Hill has shown some signs of life recently, and I really like him in this matchup, even though he'll yield some touches to Bernard, who gets a B this week. The matchup is so good, even Bernard is in play, primarily as a pass catcher, but he'll get some carries as well against the Skins D that has been torched by everybody this year. The receivers, A.J. Green, an obvious A. Even if Norman plays and shadows Green, he'll be a no-brainer for your lineup. Brandon LaFell, I'll give a C grade to. About the only other Bengals wide receiver I'll mention. His potential largely depends on whether Josh Norman plays this week or not. If Norman plays, LaFell is flex-worthy. If not, Green will be fed, leaving table scraps for LaFell. Tyler Eifert, I'll give a B- to. Cautiously optimistic that this will be the week that they take the reins off of him against a Redskins D that has yet to allow a tight end score on the season.
All right, let's do the Chiefs-Colts. Quarterback Alex Smith, B-. While not good, he's also not bad. I would start him over Bortles, that's for sure. The Colts are getting healthier in the secondary, so expect a lot of underneath passing with 200 yards at best for Smith. Running back Jamal Charles, C-, likely to watch again from the sidelines, swelling in his knees. Not going to get any meaningful carries, so that means running back Spencer Ware is getting an A for all day. Ware will be facing a subpar run defense, and he also has 700 combined yards to smash into the Colts. Wide receiver Jeremy Maclin's getting a B. He's going to catch a few underneath routes, but is not going to be the downfield threat this week. This could be one of his better days for a touchdown, as he only has 1 through 6 games, so this might be it. Tyreek Hill, Chris Conley, neither of them get any kind of confidence. They have less than 200 yards each individually, so it's even not even a risky play here to go with one of these guys. If you do have to go with another Chiefs pass catcher, make it Travis Kelce. B, team's second best pass catcher with a whopping 276 yards and 2 touchdowns. Keep in mind Julio Jones did all of that in one game. On the Colts side of the ball, quarterback Andrew Luck, B+. While the Chief gives up a lot of yards, they excel in takeaways. So look for them to make Luck throw mistakes. Luck only has 4 interceptions on the year, but I'm expecting him to throw 1 or even maybe 2 more here out of the Chiefs as they're killing it in the turnover margin. Running back Frank Gore, B. Gore has 600 combined yards and 4 touchdowns through 7 games. Maybe getting a little reduced role as some of these wide receivers start to come back online. Wide receiver T.Y. Hilton, A. I figured something out here, Andy, that if I trade a player away, they go bonkers. So I am cursed.
You know what's funny, and I don't mean to halt your matchup here, but my curse, and always has been this, I am always 1 year too early on a guy.
Oh, man.
I was, and this is going back to like Tiki Barber. Way back in the day, I have always been like 1 year, I've owned them, and then the next year they explode. So like I owned Larry Johnson the year before he exploded, before Priest Holmes went down.
Sure.
That has been my curse. So it's somewhat similar. I feel your pain.
Yeah, I bailed on T.Y. Hilton early and
Shouldn't have done that.
Have been burned ever since. Ever since I have traded T.Y. Hilton, he has 600 yards, 4 touchdowns in 5 games. So there's that.
Oof.
There's that. The person I did trade him to has been nothing but winning since.
Yeah.
She had
Starting
received
with
him.
the week she played me. Thanks a lot.
Whoops. He is getting the production due to sheer volume, and that's okay. You get the points while you can get them. Wide receiver Dante Moncrief, if he comes back online this week, give him a B. Just him being out on the field is going to elevate Luck's value. Pokey Moncrief is good to go when healthy, so if he is near 100%, get him back into your lineup quickly. Dorsett, on the other hand, he needs Moncrief, so even though he is questionable, if Dorsett's going but Moncrief isn't, nope, not playing it. Not going to play it.
Yeah, there's some guy named Rogers, I think, that fits into the
Yeah.
scheme if Dorsett doesn't go.
Yep. So you just got to watch Dorsett and Moncrief here. I don't think Dorsett's going. Moncrief likely has
The
a better.
Chester Rogers?
I have no idea.
I don't even know.
Chester the Cheetah. Jack Doyle in, Dwayne Allen out. B+. Look, we laughed and giggled about Doyle being there, but he's going to get a touchdown this week. He nearly has 30% of Luck's touchdowns.
You know who he reminds me of looking at him on the field? Scott Chandler.
Scott Chandler, are you kidding me?
You remember the former Hawkeye?
Yes, I remember.
He looks just like him out there. One of my buddies calls Scott Chandler Big Evil.
Big Evil.
So you're a big fan of Dante Moncrief, and we had a little disagreement on Twitter. We had a listener of ours hit us up on Twitter with the question of, I think it was 4 guys we had to choose from, and he had to start 2. And so I gave him sort of like a safe answer, I figure, because Moncrief was one of the options, and I wasn't excited about that because he's just now coming back from injury and maybe not 100% yet. And the other one that I can't remember who the other one. Oh, it was Gillisley, I think, where I was like, oh, he's limited in practice this week. Rex Ryan totally trolled the entire fantasy community last week because everybody thought Gillisley was going to be the guy, and he wasn't. Reggie Bush may end up being that guy. So anyway, long story short, I did not commit to Dante Moncrief. Brian hit him up separately and said, what are you talking about? Put Dante in your lineup. He's back. Do it. Second coming. And I totally disagreed, but we'll see what happens.
I think it's there.
It's tough when a player just comes back from injury, though. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. But I'm telling you, Jack Doyle, 30% of Luck's touchdowns this far, and he doesn't have to share time with Dwayne Allen.
I like that a lot. Stick around. More matchups still to come, including 2 of the NFC's best teams last year, now a combined 4 wins as they go head-to-head on Sunday. Next on 515 Fantasy Football on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines, Iowa, also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eichenberry. Who would have thought 2 of the best teams in the NFC last season, Carolina, Arizona, would be a combined 4 wins thus far into this season, Brian.
Insane.
And Carolina, a one-win team at this point, last year's representative for the NFC in the Super Bowl. Let's begin with the Cardinals and quarterback Carson Palmer, a C+ here. He's been downright awful historically against the Panthers. In 5 previous meetings dating back to 2006, he has thrown more interceptions, 9, than touchdowns, 5. Granted, losing Josh Norman has done a number to Carolina's ability to stop the pass. They're middle-of-the-pack unit in terms of yardage allowed. They've given up 13 passing scores. Not saying Palmer won't be good for at least one, but in addition to the threat of turnovers, David Johnson and the Arizona running game, making sure they get theirs, which limits Palmer's ceiling. Speaking of David Johnson, an A- in this matchup. This is actually kind of a tough matchup for running backs. Good thing David Johnson is more than just a running back. He's a wrecking ball. I wouldn't sit him if you gave me $20. 50, maybe.
Maybe.
Not 20, though. Wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald, a B+. It's been 7 games since Fitz has scored a touchdown against Carolina. 2009 was the year. Prior to that, got to go back to 2005 to see him reach the end zone against this once proud secondary, which is a shell of its former self. They should have paid Josh Norman. That's the bottom line
Yeah,
here.
100%.
Fitz will feed in this game. John Brown returns to the lineup. I give him a C grade, handing out a pair of C grades, actually, to both John Brown and to Michael Floyd, who has largely underperformed this season, despite finding the end zone every once in a blue moon. Over to the Panthers, quarterback Cam Newton, a B+. Only 5 NFL defenses have reeled in more INTs than touchdowns allowed. Arizona is one of them. Newton is the honey badger of this matchup.
Look at that.
He don't care. Threw for 335 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an INT in the playoff matchup last season, plus ran for 47 yards and 2 scores. That's the thing about Cam. If he isn't having a great day passing, he will surely get you some yardage, maybe a score or more with his legs. One place, however, I wouldn't count on him carrying the ball much anymore is down inside the 5-yard line. The Panthers don't want to risk another concussion. Jonathan Stewart, a C+. Enter Jonathan Stewart if Cam Newton's not carrying it down by the stripe. He's actually getting carries at the goal line now because of all that. I give Jonathan Stewart that C+. Arizona, a top 15 against the run, but isn't unbeatable. The volume that Jay Stu is sure to see here should make him a flex start at the very least. Fozzie Whitaker, I'm going to leave on the bench. Kelvin Benjamin, a B-. The Panthers will need to feed him in order to keep pace. He may see shadow coverage from Patrick Peterson, which is a wash because both are big and physical. Ted Ginn, I'll give a C grade too. I haven't heard from him in a while. Have you?
Who?
Ted Ginn, yeah.
Exactly.
He's been on some milk cartons here. Deep threat that Newton could try to hit once or twice as he did in last year's playoff game, which resulted in a score. Philly Brown, leaving him on the bench. Greg Olsen, though, a B grade. Mr. Reliable, even when he's not. But he'll be in there, sure enough, and we'll get targets.
All right, let's do the Raiders-Bucks here. Quarterback Derek Carr, B+. Carr goes up against a middle-of-the-road defense, but I am seeing some great growth in his game and is able to spread the ball around accurately. He has 1,800 yards and a 4-to-1 touchdown-interception ratio. Very nice for Mr. Carr, which nobody gives him credit for what he's doing. I really don't think they just naturally attribute it, well, he's got Cooper. Yeah, it's good to go. Oh, look at the stats. It's not going to Cooper.
Or you hear that, yeah, or you hear the other side, which is like, well, it's the Raiders. They suck, right?
Yeah, it's Raiders, right? No,
No.
Raiders are in first place, and
Pretty good.
Carr is the main reason.
Yep.
Running back to Latavius Murray, he's getting a B. People were writing him off. I was gobbling him up. Well, no, I was adding him.
Gobble, gobble, Brian. Gobble, gobble.
I was adding him to my roster. Oh, God.
Why did you write it like that?
He's he started, and I hope in last week's 2 touchdown performance shows you, if you can still grab him in a trade for cheap, please do so. So watch out for that. Wide receiver Amari Cooper, B-. Let's be real. Cooper is not as good as advertised. He has good games against bad defenses and his non-existence against good corners, said a wise man to me a couple of days ago. If you look at the stats, it's true. If you can sell him on name recognition and get something good out of him, go for it. There's better fish in the sea at this point. He's averaging about 80 yards per game and 1/6 of a touchdown per game. That's not wide receiver material at all, my friends. Insert Michael Crabtree, B+. Coming off another great game, he just figured out a way to win and has the confidence of his quarterback. He has 150 yards less than Amari Cooper does, but has 5 more touchdowns, which is way more valuable in the fantasy football realm. Seth Roberts, C-. He's fallen off in recent weeks, isn't snagging those red zone touchdowns, especially if Latavius Murray's back in here. So a desperation play at best. Just listen to the bargain bin. Tight ends never won on the Raiders. They're always blockers. On the Bucs side of the ball, quarterback Jameis Winston, B+. I don't think the Raiders are getting much better on defense. I think their opponents, it's just who they're playing is the reason that they're just doing the way they are. Winston has 1,613 total touchdowns. He's getting the ball to Mike Evans a lot more, and it's showing and it's proving in his stats. He's been pushing the ball deep. They had a great come-from-behind win. They looked like they were going to lose, and they come back to, score 40 points or something like that? It was crazy. So he's thrown about 1 interception per game, so you're going to have to live with that. Jaquiz Rogers getting an A. Massive yardage game last week. He held out of the end zone. Raiders give up 128 on the ground, so look for Jaquiz Rogers here to have another great game. Hopefully find that end zone for the first time this year. Great pickup if you listened to the bargain bin last week. Doug Martin.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Doug Martin, we heard about him. He's going to be out. Coach even said, hey, as long as Jaquiz Rogers is doing well, we are going to take our time with Doug Martin, which is
and they should.
fantasy gold. Wide receiver Mike Evans getting an A. He's in line for a healthy treat. He stepped up, elevated his game, and focuses on catching the ball now. He's averaging about 90 yards per game and a touchdown per, so expect a nice showing again, especially with the Raiders forced to play the run because of Jaquiz Rogers' recent success. Wide receiver Cecil Shorts III and Adam Humphries C. Public service announcement. Don't fall for the fool's gold. I liked Humphrey when VJax was on the field. I don't like him much anymore. A source close to the situation tells me that this will be a hot hand wild card. It's going to be a toss-up to who gets the action. When you take out the tight end here and running back, Evans, so just stay away from either of these two guys. Cameron Brate, C-. He can't get into the rhythm. I have high hopes for him 1 week. He does good, then he fades fast, so it's just kind of all over the place.
Seattle at New Orleans, start with the Seahawks. Quarterback Russell Wilson, a B grade. I'd be tempted to give him a higher grade, but he's clearly still hobbled by leg and or knee and or ankle and or foot and or pectoral injuries and isn't scrambling at all. Still, this is an exploitable matchup even at their place. Will we see, I should say, the Wilson that threw for 310 yards and 3 touchdowns back in December of 2013, or the Wilson that threw for only 103 yards and no scores in January of 2014? I'm willing to bet it'll be probably somewhere in the middle because of a boy named Christine.
What?
Christine Michael, an A-. The Saints have allowed the most rushing scores in the league at 11. Michael figures to be a massive part of Seattle's game plan this week, with Wilson still healing. Wide receiver Doug Baldwin, a B grade. Target share is trending up. There's no question as to who Seattle's go-to receiver is and has been. The Saints yield nearly 300 yards per game to opposing pass catchers, so I feel good about Baldwin in this matchup. Jermaine Kearse, a C+. Down the pecking order a ways for the Seahawks, who figure to run first and then run some more on Sunday. Only to be considered in a pinch is Kearse. Lockett, a C grade. Very boomer bust. But to be fair, he's still not 100%, but he will be closer to it this week. Saw only 2 targets in the Week 7 game at Arizona. Tight end Jimmy Graham. Let's talk about Jimmy Graham, shall we? A B+. Revenge game, Brian. Returns to New Orleans for the first time.
Games.
This is the first time since he was traded to Seattle, coming off a team-high 10 targets in Week 7 against Arizona. Jimmy Graham is going to have himself a day.
Lordy Lord.
Over to the Saints side, quarterback Drew Brees, a B-. Elite Hall of Fame caliber quarterback faces elite defense. In the Legion of Boom era, Brees has fared just okay. His last 2 head-to-head matchups, he's thrown for 309 and 147 yards with 1 touchdown pass in each game. It is worth noting both of these games were in Seattle. This one's at home. I'd lean more towards the better of the 2 games in terms of my projection for this week. Mark Ingram, I'll give a C grade to. Seattle gives up only 3.3 yards per carry on the season. That doesn't bode well for a guy like Ingram. Brandon Cooks, a B-. Tough sledding all day against the big and physical Seattle corners, but he should see plenty of targets, as I think the Saints will be playing from behind most of, if not all, this game. Michael Thomas, a B-. I like him just as much as I like Cooks this week, which isn't much, but worth a look due to the number of targets he's getting the past few weeks. Pretty consistent, 11, 9, 5, 13 in the past 4. Willie Snead, a C+. I think I would maybe consider him in a flex position, but Kobe Fleener, I'm leaving on the bench. I don't see a positive path for him here coming off a 2-target performance against Kansas City on the road last week. With a healthy Snead back in the lineup and producing, there's really no need for Snead. Hey, that rhymed.
Whoa, look at you.
Stick around. We do have more matchups. Oh, the pop quiz is only one short segment away, but Brian's going to get to talk about his favorite team next, so you're going to want to stick around for that. It's the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines. You also can find the show on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Gobble Eichenberry, who gets to talk about his favorite team next. Go ahead there, Gobble.
Lions at the Texans. Everybody on the Lions roster, A's. Boom. No, I'm just kidding. Quarterback Matt Stafford, he is an A, though. It's a great time to be a Lion rolling into Texas. He had a rough go last week with only 1 touchdown, but is facing a Texans defense that is banged up in the trenches and on the back end. Banged up back ends. Stafford.
You're in big trouble already this week, pal.
This is terrible. Stafford is over 1,900 yards and has a 3-to-1 touchdown ratio. I expect him to light up the Texans, not because I'm a homer, but because they're injured on defense. Running back Zach Zenner, he's getting a C. If I were you, I'd stay away from the running backs at this point. I would expect Forsett to take more reps from Zenner, but until Riddick is back at 100%, he is practicing. He's back there, but it's not there yet. It was an ankle. It's a pretty big deal. Especially
Dwayne Washington, he'll be back in the lineup.
Yeah, I'm not. No,
Not excited about him.
No, it's Zenner and Forsett. I told you weeks ago. Don't get excited about this guy. Just
a lot of people are, though. He's back in the lineup.
Yeah, well, I'm not them, so just listen to me.
No, you're wearing your Lions sweatshirt. I should trust you.
I got my hoodie on. It's awesome. It's nice and toasty. Wide receiver Golden Tate, B+. Golden Tate has found his groove and has benefited from being benched a few weeks ago. Since he was benched, he has had 258 yards and a touchdown in 2 games. I expect a good output from him again as more weapons become healthy. Wide receiver Marvin Jones Jr., B, listed as questionable. Don't worry. He's still the main downfield threat for the Lions and has the trust of his quarterback in the first year, which is awesome. He was held out of the end zone for the first time in a few weeks, but still maintained yardage in a pass-first offense. Wide receiver Anquan Bolden, C+. I believe much of Bolden's value rides on Ebron playing or not. Bolden is taking those 5-yard passes either for a first down or a touchdown. He has a 62.5% first down ratio. So his receptions divided by first downs equals 62.5%. Tight end Eric Ebron, he is back to practicing. I don't expect him to play, but if he does go, it's a cautious start. If you have nobody else at the tight end spot, B-. If he does play, Anquan Bolden drops down to a C-. On the Texans side of the ball, quarterback Brock Osweiler is getting a B-. While getting rattled in Denver, he is able to work from home this week. It's not a good fantasy football quarterback with a 1-to-1 ratio, so his touchdowns are either counting for 4 points or 3 points if you factor in those interceptions, barely over 200 yards per game. With that said, the Lions are 23rd worst pass defense, so he has the opportunity to make some hay here against the Lions. Running back Lamar Miller, I'm going to give him a B+, even with that shoulder injury. The stinger bothers me a little bit. He can re-aggravate it pretty easy. However, the Lions give up 112 on the ground per game, so if you have Lamar Miller, start with confidence. Alfred Blue, I will mention, just to spite you, Mr. Hall, C-. While Blue is typically costing people in ties the game that they can't win because he steals that last carry, you know what? He is somebody to kind of hold on to or look out for just in case Miller's shoulder injury becomes a bigger deal in this game. Wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, B. Wide receiver is only as good as the quarterback, and it's showing more this year than ever. Hopkins has been a huge letdown and is averaging less than 60 yards per game and half a touchdown per game. He will take advantage on Slay, but the Lions will bring the heat early to avoid giving Hopkins time to get downfield. Wide receiver Will Fuller is going to get a B as well. Near Hopkins in yardage, he is averaging 4 more yards per catch than his wiser counterpart with 14.5. You can easily make the case that the number 2 wide receiver here is greater value than the number 1, who was selected by my lovely partner as Andy, someone who was taking a large step backwards this year. Jalen Strong, nobody else even Fedorowicz aren't really a fantasy relevance.
New England at Buffalo. Start with the Patriots. Tom Brady, an A grade. The last time Brady played in Buffalo was September of last year. He threw for 466 yards and 3 touchdowns on that day in Orchard Park. The Bills have been very good against the pass, allowing an average of only about 255 passing yards per game. Of course, they faced Joe Flacco, Jacoby Brissett, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Case Keenum, Colin Kaepernick, and Ryan Tannehill. Not Tom Brady. Tom Brady's an A grade. LeGarrette Blount, a B+. One of the only teams that has kept him out of the end zone this season has been the Bills. A few weeks back when these teams met in Foxborough. That's pretty crazy considering the Bills have allowed the 6th most rushing yards and a total of 8 scores to opposing running backs. I think it might change this week. James White, a B-. It'll be like facing a completely different back now that Tom Brady's under center, utilizing White's skill set as a pass catcher. I think he'll easily surpass his yardage totals from week 4. Julian Edelman, a B-. Here's a stat that'll blow your mind. The Patriots have thrown a total of 1 touchdown pass to a wide receiver this season. 1.
Really?
And it wasn't to Edelman, it was to Chris Hogan.
Wow.
Who I'll give a C grade to here. He's just not seeing the volume. I had hoped to consider him in the flex spot, but I'm just not ready to endorse him fully yet. Rob Gronkowski, an A grade. He hasn't scored against the Bills since September of last year when he went off for 113 yards and a touchdown. Prior to that, counting on a Gronk TD was as sure as the sun rising in the east every day. 9 times has he hit pay dirt going back to 2010. Martellus Bennett, a B grade, primarily used as a blocker. Bennett certainly has the ability to run a route every now and again, surprise the defense. The Patriots missed him greatly the last time these teams met. Speaking of the Bills, quarterback Tyrod Taylor, a B-. Had a respectable stat line back in week 4, finishing with 246 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 28 yards rushing on 5 attempts, and that was in Foxborough. He's capable of that sort of finish again this week, but his floor isn't very safe in my opinion, especially with McCoy likely to sit and some pass catchers nursing an assortment of injuries. Mike Gillislee, I'll give a B- to this week, begrudgingly. We'll have the coming out party, perhaps, that everyone in the fantasy community expected last week, this week. Hell of a troll job by head coach Rex Ryan, by the way, fooling everyone in the fantasy world, myself included. Funny how we were right, though, as I said earlier, and he was wrong rolling McCoy out and getting him hurt. The Pats are top 12 against the run, have allowed only 3 rushing scores thus far this season. Don't expect a massive game no matter who's back there. Could be Reggie Bush. I'm going to leave him on the bench. Justin Hunter, a C+. None of the Bills' pass catchers were able to reach the end zone in week 4. I'd say if one has a chance this week, it's probably the guy that wasn't on roster yet back then. Marquise Goodwin's a little banged up, but I'll give him a C grade in case he does go. Robert Woods also banged up. I don't expect to see him. Charles Clay, a C grade, dart throw at best, not seeing much action despite all the injuries.
Jets-Browns here. This is going to be a crazy game. Quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick, B. Fitz is back by virtue of injury once again, and he came back in to lead the comeback and his team to victory. Will his benching prove to be the ticket to victory once again, even without Decker? Running back Matt Forte, A. Forte is going to get back to the beginning of the year success. His play calling will favor him, seeing as the Jets won't want to force Fitz into errors too early from coming back. He still has 600 yards of production, 5 touchdowns. Wide receiver Brandon Marshall, B, likely going to get his points in the first half. So if you have to believe he's going to snag that touchdown, which will have to come from outside the 10-yard line. I believe he will, but only has 30 receptions through 7 games, which is 4 per game when you kind of break it down for Marshall, which is a little sad. Wide receiver Quincy Enunwa, B+. That's right, higher grade than Brandon Marshall. You're probably scratching your head, but let's look inside the numbers. Enunwa has 2 more receptions than Marshall, and he is playing behind Decker for a bit. Enunwa has the same number of touchdowns, so why wouldn't you go with Enunwa here? Tight end Austin Seferian-Jenkins, questionable, but has not developed as I hope he would, so just move on from now if you can.
If he's even on your roster, you should quit fantasy football.
Yeah, that stunk. Quarterback side of the ball, you got on the Brown side of the ball, Kevin Hogan. Who's going to be the quarterback?
Josh McCown.
Is it going to be McCown? I don't know. Either way, if it's Hogan, don't. If it's McCown, you kind of got to think about it for a little bit because you kind of like McCown from way back when, but I don't know.
Now with a banged-up Terrell Pryor.
Yeah, with a banged-up Terrell Pryor, I don't think it's going to work out either way, so don't listen to the bargain bin. Running back Isaiah Crowell, B-. Jets are tough up front, only giving up 71 per game, so be ready and willing to defend some yardage if you can start. No one else is going to do so. The Browns will almost be certainly playing from behind. Duke Johnson, C- as well. Terrell Pryor, you heard about him. Injured, questionable. He's not going to do it, especially with the quarterback situation. He's going to get a B. The only buddy I like here is Barnage. Someone's got to score, right? If I had to place a wager, it's going to be on Barnage. Those short little passes up over the linebackers. He hasn't lived up to expectations, but maybe he will this week.
That was all like in one breath, too.
Wow.
That was very impressive. Well, we've reached about the halfway point of this week's show, and about the time to sit back and relax, at least for me.
You wish.
Brian doesn't get to relax at all because he's about to be bombarded by 3 of fantasy's toughest questions this week. The pop quiz is on deck, followed by more matchups. And then, of course, we got the bargain bin picks Brian mentioned. 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 1 pass catcher from each of us. The chances are available now on your waiver wire. You can go grab them, plug them in, and hope for some fantasy gold this weekend. All that still to come, but the pop quiz is next on 515 Fantasy Football, 1350 AM, ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard each and every Thursday between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. on 1350 a.m. ESPN Radio in Des Moines. You can also get our show on iTunes, on Stitcher, and on demand anytime at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. Make sure you find us on Facebook, by the way, 515 Fantasy Football. Join our online community. Hit us up anytime on Twitter, at 515Fantasy. If you want to hit us up individually, that's fine too. I'm at Andy Hall Radio. He is at IkeFFB. That's IKEFFB. It should also be mentioned that we are contributors to the SleeperBot app. We're both big fans of the app itself, and we're actually offering some analysis every now and again and helping you out on Sunday mornings leading up to kickoff, I should say.
Yeah, if you want up-to-the-date information, I have a couple of friends who are like, I don't get to watch. I don't get to stay in tune every day. SleeperBot will tell you the absolute second news breaks what you need to do in your lineup.
You're knowing more than before anybody else in your league, and that's a very powerful thing in fantasy football, especially when you get past waivers and you get to the point where it's kind of a free-for-all. And if something happens like a Devontae Booker thing that happened today with C.J. Anderson, likely to miss multiple weeks, and Devontae Booker's still sitting there on your waiver wire for some weird reason, you're going to get that alert from SleeperBot. You're going to know to go grab him immediately, and the rest of your league is still sitting there probably in their cubes at work with their thumbs up their butt. So
yeah, and then they see it on ESPN. They're like, oh, my God, yeah, I was on break. I seen it. I go out there, and you picked him up an hour and a half ago.
Exactly. Very powerful thing. So SleeperBot is available everywhere. It's absolutely free. And if you check out the alerts section on the app itself, you'll find every once in a while that myself and Brian offer some analysis on some of those alerts. And then again, on Sunday mornings, we offer up our advice in case you have quick questions leading up to kickoff. We're there to help you out. The pop quiz, Brian. 3 of fantasy's toughest questions, guaranteed to melt your brain, my friend.
Brian,
are you ready?
Yep.
Question number 1. Last year's number 3 scoring quarterback was the Seahawks' Russell Wilson. Through 7 weeks of the 2016 regular season, he ranks 24th, averaging less than 17 fantasy points per week. Is Russell Wilson droppable in leagues of 12 teams or less?
Sure is. Let's look at the stats here. He sucks. His O-line is not working out well.
Is that scientific?
Yeah, that is
Data-driven.
Data-driven. His offensive line is not better than it was. It's worse, in fact. And he just added his 3rd injury. That's still they're piling up, and especially with the pectoral muscle, it's got to affect some stuff. So yeah, defenses are playing him different. He's injured. Situations are worse. I'm moved on a long time ago.
No, I wouldn't drop him just yet.
Yeah, you're weak.
He's been playing at less than 100% clearly, which limits his ability to do what he's known for, scrambling and making plays with his feet. Whether that means running the ball or creating improvisational opportunities for his receivers downfield. Despite all of that, he's still averaging nearly 260 yards passing per game A high water mark of 309 yards back in week 4, a low of 225 this past week in Arizona against a tough defense. He does have some games upcoming against teams that are very exploitable via the air, including the Saints, who are his week 8 opponent. I would hold on Russell Wilson if I were you. 0 for 1, Brian, off to a bad start. Question number 2. Maybe you'll do better here. ESPN Fantasy has given the Packers Ty Montgomery eligibility as not only a wide receiver, but a running back now as well. Which spot is the ideal position week to week for Ty Montgomery?
Well, he's not catching any passes, and he's not getting any touches. So the ideal spot will be bench. Is that an option I can pick here?
Sure, why not?
I'm going to go 0 for 2, and I'm going to say bench, because if you're putting Ty Montgomery in your lineup, that means you fail.
You're hurting for certain? Are you saying that?
What?
Hurting for certain.
Yeah. It's a bad situation.
Well, I was hoping for either an answer of wide receiver or running back, because some people actually are in a position where they're considering starting Ty Montgomery, and they're in ESPN leagues, and they have eligibility at both positions. So which one do you plug him in at? My answer is wide receiver. Because they are scored the exact same as running backs, why waste a running back slot on Montgomery when you can get all the receptions, yards, and potential scores as a receiver, plus any rushing yards and receptions, yards, and potential scores as a runner that you don't normally count on? That one was too easy, but you're 0 for 2.
Bench.
Number 3, Brian. We're through one half of the 2016 fantasy regular season. Who are the fantasy MVPs at quarterback, running back, and wide receiver through the first half?
And this isn't even multiple choice?
No, it's 3 different answers. It's a 3-part question.
Oh, good Lord.
And since you're already 0 for 2, I'll probably give you partial credit, even if you get like one of them right.
So let me think here.
Who is your fantasy MVP at the halfway point at the quarterback position?
I would probably go with either Matt Ryan or Drew Brees.
Okay.
I mean, those guys are throwing up stud numbers, and it's by virtue of them just slinging the ball. They've got to be up there in their total points.
The fantasy MVP at the quarterback position is the Falcons' Matt Ryan.
Okay, good.
With an honorable mention to the Saints' Drew Brees. Ryan, drafted by many fantasy owners as a quarterback 2, is currently fantasy football's highest point scorer, averaging nearly 30 fantasy points per game depending on your scoring system. He's been more consistent than anyone besides Brees, who gets a nod here because he's currently ranked 3rd in fantasy scoring overall and has already had a bye week. Nicely done, Brian.
Yay.
Not only did you get Ryan, you got the Brees part right.
Perfect.
Who's your fantasy MVP at the running back position at this halfway point?
Running back has to be one of 2 people, Ezekiel Elliott or Melvin Gordon. That's my answer.
The fantasy MVP at the running back position is the Cardinals' David Johnson.
Oh, yeah, dang it.
Who has scored over 20 points more than DeMarco Murray, currently ranked number 2 in scoring at the position.
Terrible.
These are tough questions.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't think that one through. I got too excited. And
you really did. You blew your wad on it.
Yeah, I did.
Who's your fantasy MVP on the wide receiver position?
Well, I don't think you can take anything away from Julio Jones, just in sheer production numbers because of his 300-yard game. But if you were to take that away, hypothetically, I would go with T.Y. Hilton. So I would either go Julio Jones or T.Y. Hilton.
The fantasy MVP at the wide receiver position is Mike Evans, who owns the highest per-game average in scoring at the position and has already surpassed his team's bye week. He's less than 20 fantasy points behind the top scoring player at the position, Julio Jones, who scored over 40 in an incredible Week 4 performance against Carolina that you alluded to. Mike Evans. Have you seen his target shares?
Yes.
They're insane.
Yes, but as far as overall production currently through right now, sorry, bud.
He's averaging more points per game than anybody else at the position. He's already passed his bye week.
I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you.
Mike Evans. And
benefits from being in the sucky NFC South, I guess.
Well, maybe that's the case, but you know what? Even though his target shares are astronomical.
Hey,
I have
numbers
never
are numbers.
I have not seen numbers like these before, and it's sustainable because he's literally the only game in town,
Yeah, pretty much.
and it is a pretty easy schedule. So you got to give Mikey Evans some credit here. Don't worry, Brian, even though you did awful in this round of the pop quiz, you're going to get your revenge.
Oh, don't worry. I am too.
You are totally going to
I
get
am.
your revenge because,
It is
ladies
on.
and gentlemen, I'm proud to announce that at this halfway point of the season, I've been feeling a little bad for Brian. And we have a lot of teams on bye week this week, so less matchups to go through. So we had an extra segment, and coming up a little bit later on in the show, and we haven't talked about this yet, but for those of you that have stuck through it, we appreciate it. Brian's going to get a chance to hit me with a pop quiz of his own where he's asking me the questions.
It's
and
a super special extravaganza filled with magic and wonder.
I guess so, but I have, just like Brian every single week, I'm going to have absolutely no prior knowledge of what Brian's about to ask me. I can't do any research ahead of time, so it's all just going to have to be off the top of my head, and we'll see how I do. I only ask, Brian, that you're honest like I am and don't be changing your answers because of what
I
could see you already like fixing it. So like no matter what I answer, it's going to be wrong. Because you know how it is with the pop quiz. No matter what Brian answers, I always come back with the correct answer, and that's just how it goes.
That's just how it goes,
Yep.
magically.
But one time you actually did do well enough to go 3 for 3, and I'm very proud of you for that. That was, I don't remember what week it was.
Every week.
It was not every week. That's what you think. But yeah, Brian's gonna get his revenge on me very, very soon.
I'm going to get it all over you.
Okay, Brian. On this program, I will have you know. Stick around. We've got some more matchups to get through as well as that bonus pop quiz. The bargain bin, again, is a very important segment near the end of the show. One quarterback, one running back, and one pass catcher from both Brian and myself that chances are available right now. You could go to your waiver wire right now, grab that person, plug them in, and expect a decent amount of fantasy production from. And then, of course, got the Flea Flicker. Going to have some fun at the end of the show. Spread out and talk about some different things other than football and fantasy football and all that stuff. So all that still to come. We'll get back into the matchups here in just a bit. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM, ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM, ESPN Radio in Des Moines, also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. He is Brian Eichenberry. We are getting back into these matchups. San Diego at Denver. When the Chargers have the ball, quarterback Phillip Rivers, believe it or not, Brian, I'm leaving him on the bench. Faced these Broncos only a couple weeks ago in Week 6 at home. Threw for a whopping 178 yards and a touchdown.
It's always been their Achilles heel, though, hasn't it?
That touchdown, by the way, to Hunter Henry, who's in the league's concussion protocol and may not play this Sunday. Literally, one of the rare occurrences where I will advise you to sit Phillip Rivers this week. Running back Melvin Gordon, though, I'm giving a B grade to. If Denver does have a soft spot on defense, it's most certainly against the run. They're allowing nearly 117 rushing yards per game and have yielded 6 rushing scores on the season. Try not to listen to the Chargers coaching staff in regards to reducing Gordon's workload, especially this week, since they won't be able to pass much on the Broncos. Gordon is still their best bet to keep pace in the AFC West and steal a win on the road. Tyrell Williams, I'll give a C grade to. He's a dart throw at best. Was held to 3 receptions for 28 yards in Week 6. So why does he get a starting grade? 2 receptions for 90 yards and a score back in January against Denver. Although I will say this, again, missed practice on Wednesday.
Yep.
Keep a close eye. Him and Travis Benjamin, in fact. And I'm leaving Benjamin on the bench anyway, so don't worry about him. Dontrell Inman also on the bench. Antonio Gates, I'll give a C grade to. Aging veteran against one of the league's elite defenses against the pass. No thanks. I'll pass on Gates this week, even if Hunter Henry is out. Hunter Henry in, I'd give him a C+ because he did score a couple weeks ago in the last head-to-head. So I do like Hunter Henry if he's able to play. For the Broncos, quarterback Trevor Siemian, a B grade, threw 50 passes against the Chargers in Week 6 for 230 yards and a touchdown. Considering San Diego's secondary is actually more banged up now than they were then, Siemian has an opportunity to surpass that Week 6 output, especially when it comes to number of touchdown tosses. C.J. Anderson, likely to miss multiple weeks. I mean, that is just shocking stuff, isn't it?
It's crazy.
It really is. So, I mean, Devontae Booker is your start here, and he's an easy A grade. Secondary backs like Booker have had very little issue producing against this Chargers D. Robert Turbin, Jameez Olawale, and Tevin Coleman all scored against them. Even Alex Smith was able to run one in against this defense. So Booker's looking amazing this week. Wide receiver Demaryius Thomas, a B+. Virtually non-existent the last time these teams met, but the 3 matchups prior to that, he averaged 6 receptions for over 100 yards receiving and scored a touchdown in each of them. Emmanuel Sanders, a B grade. Aside from a crazy 9-catch, 120-yard performance with 3 touchdowns back in October of 2014, he's been held in check by Jason Verrett and or Brandon Flowers, neither of which will be in the lineup this Sunday.
Nope.
Oops. Yeah, again, going back to what I said about Simeon, this could be a pretty decent week for that Broncos passing game, but I do think Booker is your A start for sure. Virgil Green, I'm leaving on the bench. Looks like the Broncos are trying to trade for a tight end now anyway, so go ahead.
All right. Well, we're going to do the Packers-Falcons. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers, B+. Good news for Rodgers is he's facing the 31st worst pass defense. This may be the boost in passing yards he needs. He has 1,500 with 15 total touchdowns. In terms of fantasy football, he's been underperforming. Everyone thought with Jordy back he was going to throw up 4,040, but that's not the case. Running back situation, Don Jackson, Ty Montgomery, everybody. We already know my thoughts. Leave them both on the bench. Falcons are a top 10 run defense, so don't even get involved with that absolute disaster train wreck. Wide receiver Jordy Nelson, B-. Jordy is dropping, and it can only be from the confidence in his knee. He's a little slower, may not be so confident. 3 games, he's barely over 100 combined yards for the last 3 games. So it's got to be something. He's a decent bye-week fill-in at this point, but other than that, he's on my bench. Wide receiver Randall Cobb. B. Cobb is questionable going into Thursday, so watch the injury report. I like his chances because of the amount of passing the Packers are going to have to do this week to keep pace with the Falcons at home. Devontae Adams, he was a hero last week. I'm going to give him a B. Typically, I would give him a lower grade, but since he is filling in fine and is a great option. He has a few more yards than Jordy anyways, and is tied in touchdowns with 5. Tight end Richard Rodgers going to get a C. Looking for a touchdown here. Virtually no history to work with. And Rodgers is going to have to throw more than 40 times Sunday. So it is worth a play if you have to. Desperation at best. On the Falcons side of the ball, quarterback Matt Ryan, he's got an A. Packers are an average pass defense and will be tested often. 2,300 yards and a 4-to-1 touchdown ratio out of Matt Ryan. As we heard, he is the quarterback MVP in fantasy football right now. He's been that biggest surprise in the QB category. People were writing him off as a backup, but he has proven himself worthy. Running back Devonta Freeman's going to get a B. Tevin Coleman out. He's getting the workload. The only thing is the Packers have the best run defense in the league, giving up 71 yards per game. That is a little heartbreak there for Freeman, but he's going to have it all to himself. He's perfectly capable, especially since the Packers are going to have to pull an extra man out of the box and put him in the secondary. Julio Jones, A. Whenever Matt Ryan has a big game, it's because of him. Virtually the only pass catcher in Atlanta, judging by his 830 yards and 5 touchdowns. He is 1/3 of Matt Ryan's production. Oh, and he also averages over 20 yards per catch. Wide receiver Mohamed Sanu, B-. Big disappointment. I'm going to eat crow on this one. Sanu was my big sleeper of the year, and apparently he's still asleep, hitting the snooze button. He only has 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tevin Coleman has more receiving yards than Mohamed Sanu. Hardy's really not worth my time. Tight end Jacob Tamme, C+. If you had to play Tamme, you're hoping for a touchdown. He has 3. He actually has 1 more than Mohamed Sanu. So he is not a yardage play.
Philadelphia at Dallas. Big NFC East battle. Always a rivalry. Let's start with the Eagles. Quarterback Carson Wentz, a C+. Dallas is a borderline top 12 defense against the pass, allowing 266 yards per game through the air, a total of 10 touchdowns in 6 games. They're coming off a bye after holding Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers to 294 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. Not a ton of upside to relying on a rookie in a big spot on the road in prime time. We'll see how bright those lights really are on Sunday night. Ryan Matthews, I'll give a C+ too. The Dallas Cowboys rank 6th in yards allowed to opposing runners, only 4.4 yards per carry, and they've only given up a total of 2 rushing scores on the year. 1 to Carlos Hyde, 1 to Matt Jones. Matthews should see a decent amount of volume in this game, but you can't expect anything more than yardage from a production standpoint. Darren Sproles, Wendell Smallwood, I'm just going to have to leave them both on the bench. I think they're eating each other's value, essentially. Yeah, it's tough. Jordan Matthews, a B grade. In 2 games versus the Cowboys last season, Matthews caught 15 passes for 213 yards and 2 scores. He also found the end zone in his lone head-to-head back in 2014. Dorial Green-Beckham, a C+. Big-bodied guy that Wentz will probably look to as the Eagles get down deep into Cowboys territory. Otherwise, his chances aren't all that appealing, but we did see him score against Minnesota in that upset win last week. Nelson Aguilar, a C grade, saw a team-high 6 targets in that win versus Minnesota. If you're absolutely desperate, he may give you similar opportunity this week, which really isn't all that much. Tight end Zach Ertz, a C grade. Dallas has historically done a very good job at keeping Ertz down in this matchup, allowing an average of only about 3 receptions per game and about 34 yards with no scores in 6 prior meetings between these two teams. Over to the Cowboys, quarterback Dak Prescott, a C+. Everyone talks about the Vikings and the Broncos when it comes to elite pass defenses, but the Eagles have proven to be every bit as good thus far in 2016, allowing 204 yards per game to opposing passers, and they've only given up 6 passing touchdowns in 6 games, while picking off 5 enemy passes. Prescott should be well protected against the Eagles' blitz-happy front 7, but will likely rely more on the running game to succeed on Sunday night. And speaking of that running game, Ezekiel Elliott, a B+. Philly allows just over 100 total yards per game on the ground, have yielded only 3 rushing scores all year, but Elliott has proven himself to be matchup-proof and should see heavy usage in this one, as long as game flow is competitive, which it should be. Des Bryant may play this week, and if he does, I'm giving him a B+. I kind of got on your case about Moncrief earlier on, but Des Bryant, I'm like you with Moncrief. I say plug him right in.
You bet.
Despite the fact that this is his first week back from a long-term injury, it's impossible to ignore his impressive history against the Eagles. Last year, he caught 5 passes for 104 yards and a score in his second game back from injury. In December of 2014, he caught 6 passes for 114 yards and 3 touchdowns. Over a total of 9 games against the Eagles, he has scored 8 touchdowns. I like him here despite that tough matchup on paper. Cole Beasley, I'll give a C+ too, provided Prescott has time to find him. Beasley is a fine flex play this week. He caught 9 passes for 112 yards and 2 scores in the team's November matchup of last year in Dallas. And finally, Jason Witten, a C grade, has become an afterthought in the grand scheme. I'd find a better option if I were you. And lucky for you, if you need a tight end, there are a few out there like Jack Doyle, for example.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, who still hasn't been snatched up in a lot of leagues, but that's, that's the league you're in, I guess. Some teams are not tight end mandatory, like yours, Brian.
Nope.
So some
Complete
people
waste.
just don't need to start a tight end. But, Jack Doyle, you plugged him in last week. That worked out pretty well for you, especially right toward the end of the game there.
You betcha.
Early on in the game, I'm going, oh, God, I made a mistake. And then fourth quarter comes along, boom, 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 touchdown. I'm like, yes, that worked. So, all right, Brian. Well, some say I've been mean to you all year long.
Many people
the
do.
Pop quiz, and I've been unfair and all this and that and the other thing. So here I am being fair and giving you an opportunity to do what I do to you every week.
Duty.
You came up with questions of your own, and you're going to throw them at me. A bonus pop quiz is coming up here shortly. I'm going to be forced to answer these questions off the top of my head, see what it's like to be Brian week in and week out. So stick around for that. We'll also go through the Monday Nighter as well. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show. You're hearing it on 1350 AM, ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard each and every Thursday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on 1350 a.m., ESPN Radio in Des Moines, Iowa. You're also maybe catching us on iTunes or maybe on Stitcher, or maybe you're listening on ESPNDesMoines.com. No matter how you found the show, Brian and I appreciate it very, very much. And Brian's got the honors for the last of the matchups, Monday Nighter.
Yeah, let's do the Vikings-Bears here. Let's rip through this. I got to bury you in the pop quiz. Quarterback Sam Bradford, B. No point getting a QB He's not worth the points. You don't have an option. I guess he's it. But the Bears get worse and worse by the week. So this may be Bradford's time to score you some fantasy football points. Jerick McKinnon on the running back side of the ball, he is questionable. Sounds like he won't play. So running back Matt Asiata is going to get a B+ by sheer volume. And the only running back option should be a decent play, and you get decent yardage, averaging 3 yards per carry and has 2 touchdowns. With some receptions, he can get you some value this week only. Wide receiver Stephon Diggs is going to get a B. The team's leading receiver and should see a manageable workload. Likely the only wide receiver that warrants a start here in Minnesota. He is averaging 14 yards per catch, but certainly not the end zone threat as he only has 1 touchdown. Wide receiver Adam Thielen, however you say it. Thielen, yeah, figures, skull. B-, desperation play, but isn't too far off Diggs, and has the same amount of touchdowns, actually, as Stephon Diggs does, as 1. If you are looking for a pass catcher, you better be Kyle Rudolph, B+. Nearly 50% of Bradford's touchdowns go to Rudolph. I've been starting him over Jordan Reed and have not been disappointed, as he is pretty much guaranteeing you 50 yards per game and a touchdown every other go. On the Bears side of the ball, Jay Cutler, D for don't. Considering his attitude when saying John Fox has no choice but to endorse him and magically his thumb is healed when another quarterback can't go. His stats, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. It's in shambles. The team is likely not behind him at all, so I would be concerned. Jordan Howard, he is going to get a B-, 480 combined yards and a couple touchdowns. Howard is expected to be the starter for 1 more week until Langford does come back fully healthy. Howard has cooled off since his breakout, so I'm not sure what to make of that return for Langford. Wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey, B-, while he is a number 1 and is a big guy. The state of the team is highly flammable, and it may be time to look the other way just for a week. If you have an opportunity to trade Jeffrey on a high note based on name recognition, I would do so. He averages 70 yards per game and has 0 touchdowns. Let me repeat that. Alshon Jeffrey has 0 touchdowns. Wide receiver Cameron Meredith, Eddie Royal, they're same as before. Royal's questionable. It doesn't look like he's going to even go. Meredith is a C, same reason as before. It's just not a good situation to be a Bear right now. If you are looking for a Bear and you have to go with one, you might look to tight end Zach Miller. He has 33 receptions and 3 touchdowns, so he does get a touchdown 10% of the time he catches the ball. Sounds cool, but it's really not. He has just over 300 yards. I'd probably start him over everyone but Jeffrey. Now,
with Cutler under center, I mean, we know he locks onto Alshon Jeffrey, so that should do wonders for Jeffrey's target totals.
He does, but God,
it's a tough matchup this week.
It is.
Though.
I
would
trust
bench
it at all.
every single Bear.
Yeah.
I would. That would have been my advice. If I were doing that matchup, I would have gone through the Vikings, and
I
then
didn't
I would
want
have
to be
said,
that cruel.
as far as the Bears go, bench everybody.
Yeah, I would. Well, if you look at my grades, that's what they're getting. All right, on to the week's hottest segment here.
Yeah, there you go.
It is Brian's pop quiz for Andy. So I have 3 football questions and then 3 fun questions.
Oh,
so
cool.
you will
Okay.
get 6 questions.
I like it.
In our rifle round here. How many minutes do we have left in this beautiful segment?
About 6.5.
All right, you're going to fail quickly. Of players that had an IDP value of 10 or less, meaning they were drafted in the first round, typically from their position. So quarterbacks are drafted.
An ADP or an IDP?
An ADP, sorry.
Because I know you're
Autocorrect
obsessed
got
with
me there.
IDP.
Yeah. Meaning all is in the first rounders. Who is the biggest disappointment?
Ooh.
So for quarterback, hold on, I'm going to help you out here.
Yeah.
I don't want you to cry. Quarterback position, the 3 that I have chosen for you. Cam Newton was a 1. Aaron Rodgers, consistently number 2. Russell Wilson, consistently number 3. Quarterback off the board.
Yeah.
Who is the biggest disappointment?
Of those 3?
In fantasy football terms, of
Yeah.
those 3.
Yeah.
Who is your biggest disappointment?
I think I helped myself out by doing all that research on Russell Wilson earlier when I asked the question of you of whether or not he's droppable in team leagues of 12 teams or less. Honestly, I mean, it's got to be. Well, Aaron Rodgers is quite a disappointment, sure, considering.
I mean, isn't that crazy? We're talking about 3 studs from last year
Yeah.
and in history.
Here's the
and
thing,
they are
though.
busts.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be Wilson. I mean, he finished 3rd last season, 3rd highest scoring quarterback this year. Right now, currently, he's down at number 24. And he doesn't look to be improving that anytime soon. I mean, sure, he's got a couple of good matchups coming up. And
Are you done now? You already know you're going to lose, right?
Okay, so the right answer is Russell
So
Wilson.
the right answer is Cam Newton. The reason being, Cam was an overall stud. He was the number one scoring fantasy football option out there. And in most leagues, Cam Newton only has 162 points right now. Aaron Rodgers has 188, and Russell Wilson has 134. So I would argue that Cam Newton is the biggest disappointment.
Because he was being taken before Russell Wilson.
Yep.
Yeah. Some people were taking Newton in the first
Yeah.
round. I mean, that was
No,
I
can't
thought
do
that
it.
was even I thought that was insane.
Yeah. Super Bowl slump is a big one for the Panthers this year.
Mm-hmm.
Same question. Oh, no, we're going to do a fun one. What is my favorite movie?
Oh. Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, you suck.
Yes.
All right, so you're 1 for 2.
Hey, I know you pretty well.
Terrible. All right,
It's
so
one of my favorites too.
of the wide receiver category that have an ADP of 10 or less, your question or your options are DeAndre Hopkins, who was a 4.3, Allen Robinson, a 6.6, or Jordy Nelson was an 8.9. Who is the
They
biggest?
all suck so
Yeah.
bad.
Isn't this crazy?
Yeah, so I mean Hopkins is a disappointment, but I mean he's even been surpassed by a rookie.
Yeah.
So I mean that's how bad it is. But Allen Robinson's the biggest disappointment as far as I'm
I
concerned.
think so.
No question about it.
All right. Well, the correct answer is Jordy Nelson.
I didn't have any high hopes for him.
Oh.
He's over 30 years old. He's coming off of major surgery. You know, that how could he be the biggest disappointment?
He was Aaron Rodgers' love child
3 years ago.
Jordy Nelson was supposed to be the big thing. Aaron Rodgers was back. It was going to happen. It was going to be just a second kindling of love. So the correct answer is Jordy Nelson.
He didn't even play last year. Allen Robinson was a top 10 wide receiver last
Allen
year.
Robinson has 57 points. DeAndre Hopkins has 75 points, and Jordy Nelson has 70 points. I have it in
Again,
bold.
I just
No,
made
I'm
my
sorry.
point.
I'm sorry.
Robinson was top 10 last year. Are you kidding me?
The correct answer was Jordy
That's
Nelson.
a stupid
I have it in bold.
That is a stupid
I
question.
didn't move it.
You're
All right.
so wrong on that.
So, fun question.
Oh, you're so wrong.
What is my favorite book, Andy?
Ooh, favorite book. You know, I don't know the answer to this, so I'm just going to throw one out there. I'm going to say Lord of the Rings.
Trick question. Books are dumb.
Okay, thank you.
That's how I feel about that question.
That's funny.
You are 1 for 4.
So I was kind of on the right
You-
path.
yeah, you were
Okay.
actually kind of right.
Okay.
Same question. All the ADP 10 or less. Running back category. Todd Gurley was a 1.3. Lamar Miller, 5.6. Mark Ingram, 9.6. Biggest disappointment.
This one's easy. It's Todd Gurley all day long.
Yeah, this one I'm going to give to you. Gurley, total heartbreak this year. While his statistics aren't terrible, they're not anywhere near a 1.3.
He's not scoring the touchdowns. His offensive line is awful.
Yeah.
And the offense itself is awful. I mean,
He's not running through people like he used to, and I think that's just because you run against 9 in the box. That's incredible.
hard. Yeah.
It's terrible.
Only
terrible.
Adrian Peterson's able to do that.
All right, so you're 2 for 5. Oh, so just so we cover here, Todd Gurley has 92.3 points in most leagues. Miller has 107. Mark Ingram has 83.7. So, yeah, I would say Gurley is the biggest disappointment based on the draft.
Agreed.
So, third fun question.
Okay.
What is the distance of one astronomical unit, or AU, as commonly referred to in astronomy?
Well, I'm a chemistry guy, so AU actually would be in reference to gold.
No. What is the distance of one astronomical unit?
I'm just saying AU. When you say that, all I can think of is
Oh,
gold
well, good.
because
Then
that's
I'm going to get this right. and you're gonna
on the
go 2 for
periodic
6.
table. AU is gold. I'm kind of a brainiac, but what is the actual distance in metric or in
the unit of measure. What is the unit of measure for one astronomical unit? So what would be that distance?
be a light year?
No,
No?
incorrect. One astronomical unit is the distance from the sun to the earth.
Okay.
So if you measure something, they would say Neptune is 53 AU.
Okay, got it.
Astronomical
That's
units.
good.
Bam!
I learned something today.
You learned something today.
That's cool.
People are like, what the crap
You know,
is
that's
going on right
difference between me and you, Brian, here is that I actually learn something when I lose, and you, on the
I
other hand,
don't.
just get bitter.
now? I
and
just keep banging my head
complain.
into the wall.
So I hope you had fun. I hope you had fun. Maybe we'll do this again
2
sometime.
for 6, Andy.
I know.
2 for 6.
Hey, in baseball, that's pretty good average.
Yeah.
So there you go. Stick around, friends. One more segment to go, and that is our bargain bin picks, followed by the fun. That is the 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker, and we'll do those both next on the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines, also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. Again, I invite you to join our online community on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football. We're on Twitter at 515 Fantasy. I'm at Andy Hall Radio. He's at Ike FFB. That's IKEFFB. And again, we contribute to our friends at SleeperBot as well. So you can download that SleeperBot app absolutely free and see not only some fantasy analysis from your boys here at 515 Fantasy Football, but also a little bit of help on Sunday mornings leading up to kickoff. Speaking of help, if you're in need of a dart throw at the quarterback, the running back, or a pass catcher position, Brian and I have answers for you. And we'll begin with Brian and your bargain bin pick at the quarterback position.
Quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick. Look, if when in doubt, play the Browns.
Oh, yeah.
Fitz is playing the Browns. He will not be forced to carry the game on his shoulders. They will use Matt Forte. He will make good decisions. He will have 250 and 2 touchdowns this week. When in doubt, play the Browns.
My quarterback is Alex Smith. He's owned in less than 40% of Yahoo leagues. Faces a Colts defense that has given up the 6th most passing yards in the league through 7 weeks and the 5th most passing touchdowns at 11. Now, you might ask the question, won't the Chiefs be running all day long against Indy's 25th ranked run defense? Yes, but consider this. Even when the matchup is amazing, as it was last week against the Saints, Smith still went 17 of 24 for 214 yards and 2 scores. I think he's a perfectly good option this week for your lineup if you're in a pinch. Brian, who's your running back?
Running back Matt Asiata. He's owned in like 20% of leagues right now. You don't have any other choice. He's going against Chicago. I gave him a B+. He's averaging 3 yards per carry.
My running back is Chris Thompson. He's owned in less than 15% of Yahoo leagues. Squares off against a Bengals defense that gives up 4.6 yards per carry through the first 7 weeks, allows nearly 119 total rushing yards per game, and has given up 6 rushing touchdowns. Matt Jones is seeing less time. Rob Kelly is strictly an early down runner. Thompson actually led Washington in carries last week with a similar run defense, the Lions. He gained 73 yards on 12 carries, over 6 yards per carry. Also chipped in 7 receptions for 40 yards. Chris Thompson is my running back. Who's your pass catcher?
Tight end Jack Doyle of the Indianapolis Colts. Look, we talked about it. We giggled. He has 30% of Luck's touchdowns. That's a big deal, and he doesn't have to share time with Allen. Watch for Jack Doyle. This could be a multi-touchdown game in the tight end position.
Mine's Devontae Adams, Green Bay. Inexplicably, he's only owned in 20% of Yahoo leagues. Adams will see Atlanta's torchable secondary this week on the heels of a monster Week 7 in which he hauled in 13 of 16 targets for 132 yards and 2 scores against a Bears D that has given up 356 less yards through the air than the Falcons and 5 less receiving touchdowns as well. Jordy Nelson should be busy with Desmond Trufant for much of this one, so it feels as though Adams should be in line for another big workload again this week in a game that should be pretty high scoring.
Boom.
Those are your bargain bin picks.
I like our bargain bin picks this week.
All year long I've liked them pretty much.
This is going to be a home run week.
I hope so. Well, Brian, we're on to the final segment of this week's show, and that would be the 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker. And by my clock here, we've got less than 7 minutes, but that's plenty of time to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Do you have a scripted topic for you?
I don't,
No?
but
Okay.
I have one thing that I wanted to talk about at some point.
Okay. I want to start off with trick-or-treating. The one thing that drives me absolutely bonkers in central Iowa here is having to have a joke to get a piece of candy.
Oh, it's the stupidest thing in
It
the
is
world.
so dumb. I come from Northeast. It's not even an Iowa thing. It's like a Des Moines thing.
Just like Beggar's Night, though. Beggar's Night is a different concept for me, too.
I don't get it.
I don't like it.
No, we're going trick-or-treating. We're going to ding-dong, trick-or-treat. That's it. I can't prep a 4-year-old for jokes, people. This is impossible. He doesn't care. He just wants the candy. Just give him one and let us go.
I especially don't like the Nazis that get angry when my kids don't have jokes. I'm like,
Yes.
first of all, my eldest is 6. Last year when he was 5, there was a guy that literally would not give him a piece of candy. I had to
it's
go
so
up.
stupid.
I almost got in a fight with the guy. I had to walk up to him and say, "Excuse me, he's 5 years old. He doesn't know what the hell a joke is.
Yeah.
Just give him a piece of candy.
Just
will
give
ya?"
him a piece of candy.
And
Stop it.
he looked at me and goes, "It's tradition, man." I go, "Yeah, well, guess what? I'm not from here, and I don't like your stupid tradition.
Yeah.
Give him a piece of candy." And it was like, if I would have had to give him a piece of candy one more time, I would have punched him right in the freaking
That's
nose.
hilarious.
So there you go. I don't like it either, Brian. For
Good.
the record, and I hope all of Central Iowa's listening.
If they got a
Stupid.
joke, that's fine. But come on, man.
Don't make them do it, because some kids just, that's not their thing.
Yeah.
Okay? All right.
Done. What do you got?
What do I got? Well, happy Halloween to everybody, first of all, since that's coming up on Monday. What I want to talk about is the resurgence of Nintendo.
Oh, man.
I'm a huge gamer.
Yep.
I've become a lot less so since I started having kids.
I
But
know they interfere with everything.
They
cool.
do. But to be honest, like, I really have been watching closely, like, through Nintendo Wii and then Wii U, and now the latest with the announce of the Switch, which,
Yep.
by the way, looks really freaking cool. But I think I'm even more interested in getting my hands on one of the new NES Classic consoles that's coming
Yes.
out on November 11th, by the way.
Veterans Day.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
that's Veterans Day.
Well,
So I think Nintendo's communist.
well,
But
there
they're
you go.
But they're
Just-
Japanese, so
well,
whatever.
capitalism.
They probably didn't go, oh, it's Veterans Day. Screw it. Let's do video games.
Come on. No, but honestly, I mean, it's a very exciting day because 30 preloaded games, HDMI outputs,
Mhm.
so you can plug it into your modern
Yep.
TVs now and play like Super Mario Brothers on a HD.
So you know what's going to happen?
I'm so like stoked about this.
Is GameStop is not doing pre-orders on these systems.
I don't know if anybody's doing pre-orders, are they?
They're not. You know what that means?
People are going to trample one another.
I am an unapologetic American capitalist.
I'm going to punch my way to one of those consoles.
I am going in, I am camping out, and I'm walking in and saying, what is the limit per person?
Oh, you're going to be that guy.
And if they say no limit, $60 a pop, I'm probably going to buy about 20 of them.
Wow.
Just so you know.
That's cool.
I will be buying about 20, and they will be available on eBay for about $200 a piece.
Well, I was going to say, maybe you'll sell me one at the $60 retail.
I will sell you one, yes.
That would be nice.
But it is going to, I did the same thing with the Wii. When the Wii first came out, I'm sorry, I will take advantage of holiday time, and I will put this bad boy up, and I will flip my money 3 times full. That is how capitalism works, folks. And I love it because I will buy the crap out of them, and I will shuck them out little over time, wait for Christmas. That's how it's going to be. They're not going to mass produce this thing where there's going to be 10 billion of these things.
No.
Not happening.
It's a limited run for sure. But it is going to be a hot item this holiday season, no question. Speaking of the holiday season, can we enjoy Halloween first? Can we
Yes.
enjoy Thanksgiving maybe?
Yes, please.
No. Already
Dollar
Christmas
Tree, the Dollar
everywhere.
Tree had Christmas stuff out after the 4th of July.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. But, I mean, it's a growing trend where you're seeing, like, the push even before we get to Halloween and then Thanksgiving. It's like, I'm a huge Thanksgiving guy. So maybe it's me being unfair a bit. Like, it's okay to get into the Christmas spirit once we get into November, probably. But since I'm such a fan of Thanksgiving, it embitters me to see people sort of skip right over it.
Yeah, so for me, Thanksgiving was my old man's holiday, so I always got to hang out with my old man on Thanksgiving. So I'm the same way. We have rules in my house now, is that the Christmas tree is not even unboxed or even thought about until the day after Thanksgiving.
Well, that's a good thing.
That is when we can unbox the Christmas tree.
And when you do decorate a tree, Brian, do you have carols on?
No.
You don't listen to Christmas music when you're decorating the tree and stuff?
No.
No?
No.
That's too bad.
Nope. I'm mostly arguing with my wife because I have too many Star Wars ornaments and video game ornaments that it's not Christmassy enough.
We listen to Christmas music.
Oh.
One of those selections was Scott Weiland, the late singer of Stone Temple Pilots, singing Christmas standards.
Does your wife sit and watch Lifetime movies forever?
It's no.
Oh, mine does.
No.
And it's great because then I get to go play video games. So if you want to watch Christmas movies on Lifetime or Hallmark Channel
Oh, boy.
for 7 hours, great. I'll be in the basement playing Call of Duty, killing people.
and listening to Metallica at
Yes.
very high volume. Speaking of which, we have about 1 minute left here, and I just want to throw this out there.
Oh, there's a new song getting released on Halloween too.
I heard that.
Oh, man.
I'm not holding my breath, but I'm one of a few radio people in the country that are being considered to fly out to HQ
Oh man, that would make me poop my pants.
and interview the band
That would be insane.
and talk about Hardwired to Self-Destruct
Man.
for a radio special that's going to be syndicated all over the country.
That would be freaking epic.
I am one of a very small handful of people that are being considered for this, and I probably just jinxed myself by mentioning it on air. But I'm so excited about even the possibility,
That would be
or even
freaking
being in the
sweet.
same company
You're
as
talking
some of the
about
people.
Christmas early.
If I could fly out to San Francisco
Yeah, to go to HQ.
the week
That's
before
mecca, dude.
the album comes out, so that'd be November 11th, the day of the Nintendo
Veterans
Classic.
Day.
And
I'll be scalping systems, and you're talking. I will
I got
trade you
sorry,
spots.
didn't mean to bring that up at the last second, but we got to go. But
Bye.
thank you so much for listening. Another 515 Fantasy Football Show for Brian Eikenberry. I'm Andy Hall. Have a great week and good luck.